The Complete History of the Bible, Part 6. The Second Temple and the 400 Silent Years. The destruction of Jerusalem in 586 BC was one of the darkest moments in biblical history. The temple built by Solomon lay in ruins, the city walls had been torn down, and thousands of Jews lived as exiles in Babylon. For many, it seemed as though the promises made to Abraham, Moses, and David had come to an end. But God's story was far from over. The prophets had spoken not only of judgment, but also of restoration. They foretold a day when God's people would return to their homeland and rebuild what had been lost. That opportunity came when a new world power emerged. In 539 BC, the mighty Babylonian Empire fell to the Persians under the leadership of King Cyrus the Great. Unlike many conquerors of the ancient world, Cyrus adopted a policy of allowing captive peoples to return to their homelands and restore their religious practices. In a remarkable turn of events, Cyrus issued a decree permitting the Jewish exiles to return to Jerusalem. For the Jewish people, this was a moment of immense hope. Groups of exiles began making the long journey back to Judah. The land they returned to was not the prosperous kingdom their ancestors had known. Jerusalem was still scarred by destruction, and rebuilding would require enormous effort. One of the first priorities was restoring worship. Under the leadership of Zerubbabel and the high priest Joshua, work began on rebuilding the temple. The project faced opposition from neighboring groups and periods of discouragement, but eventually the temple was completed around 516 BC. This structure became known as the Second Temple. Although it lacked some of the grandeur of Solomon's temple, it became the center of Jewish religious life for centuries. Yet, rebuilding the temple was only part of the challenge. The city itself remained vulnerable. Its walls were broken, and many aspects of community life needed restoration. This is where two important figures entered the story: Ezra and Nehemiah. Ezra was a priest and skilled scribe, devoted to the study and teaching of God's law. He returned to Jerusalem with a mission to strengthen the people's understanding of Scripture. Ezra emphasized obedience to God's commands and encouraged spiritual renewal among the people. His work highlights the growing importance of written Scripture during this period. The law of Moses became central to Jewish identity and worship. Nehemiah, meanwhile, served as a trusted official in the Persian court. When he learned about Jerusalem's condition, he was deeply troubled. After receiving permission from the Persian king, Nehemiah traveled to Jerusalem and organized the rebuilding of the city's walls. Despite opposition, threats, and political challenges, the walls were completed in a remarkably short period. Together, Ezra and Nehemiah helped restore both the physical and spiritual life of the Jewish community. As the centuries passed, Judah remained under foreign rule. First came the Persians. Then, in the 4th century BC, a young military genius changed the course of world history. His name was Alexander the Great. Alexander conquered vast territories stretching from Greece to Egypt and deep into Asia. His victories spread Greek language, culture, and ideas throughout the ancient world. This process, known as Hellenization, had a profound impact on Jewish society. Greek became a common language across much of the Mediterranean region. As generations passed, many Jews living outside Judea spoke Greek more fluently than Hebrew. This created a new challenge. How could people understand the scriptures if they could no longer read Hebrew? The solution came through one of the most important translation projects in history. Jewish scholars translated the Hebrew scriptures into Greek. This translation became known as the Septuagint. The Septuagint was enormously significant. It made the scriptures accessible to Greek-speaking Jews and later played a major role in the spread of Christianity. Many quotations from the Old Testament found in the New Testament come from the Septuagint rather than the original Hebrew text. The Bible was beginning to reach a wider audience than ever before. Yet political tensions continued. After Alexander's death, his empire was divided among his generals. Judea found itself caught between competing kingdoms. Eventually, one ruler attempted to force Greek religious practices upon the Jewish people. This ruler was Antiochus IV Epiphanes. He outlawed many Jewish customs, desecrated the temple, and attempted to suppress Jewish worship. His actions sparked a rebellion. A priestly family known as the Maccabees led a revolt against foreign oppression. Through determination and military success, they regained control of Jerusalem and purified the temple. This event is commemorated in the Jewish festival of Hanukkah. The Maccabean revolt demonstrated the Jewish people's commitment to preserving their faith and traditions despite intense pressure. After this period, something unusual happened. For approximately 400 years, no new books of scripture were added to what Christians now call the Old Testament. This period is often referred to as the Silent Years. The term does not mean that nothing happened. In fact, a great deal occurred. Empires rose and fell. Political movements developed. Religious groups emerged. The Pharisees, Sadducees, Essenes, and Zealots all appeared during this time. Synagogues became important centers of worship and teaching. The Jewish people continued studying and preserving scripture. Most importantly, the world was being prepared for the arrival of the Messiah. The Persian Empire gave way to Greek influence. Greek influence eventually gave way to Roman rule. Road systems improved. Trade routes expanded. A common language spread across much of the known world. All of these developments would help facilitate the rapid spread of the gospel in the centuries to come. By the end of the Silent Years, Judea was under the control of the Roman Empire. The stage was set. The prophecies of Isaiah, Jeremiah, Daniel, and other prophets were known and discussed. Many people were longing for deliverance. Many were waiting for God's promised Messiah. Soon, in a small town called Bethlehem, a child would be born whose life would transform not only biblical history, but the entire world. The Old Testament era was drawing to a close. The New Testament era was about to begin. In Part 7, we will explore the birth of Jesus Christ, his ministry, miracles, teachings, crucifixion, resurrection, and why he became the central figure of the Bible and the Christian faith.